Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Myers with a lesson on slope and how we can determine slope from a table. So we've learned that slope, another thing for slope like we see in this booklet, is rate of change. We use a special letter for slope. You'll see a variable that we use for slope, and the variable that we use for slope is m. We've already learned how to do this. Now we're just trying to put it together. So there are a couple of ways that we can find slope. The first way, we've already talked about it in class. So we're going to look at the first example together before I fill in that other blank. The first example, we see that x is 2 when y is 1, x is 3 when y is 1.5, and x is 4 when y is 2. So slope is, for a proportional table, we're looking for the relationship with x and y. So we're looking at the relationship between x and y. What do I do to x to get y in this table? Divide by 2. So this is a divide by 2 relationship. But I want to remind you that the slope is not 2. The slope is the number that you multiply by to get y. I'm not multiplying by 2. What am I doing? Dividing by 2. So when you are dividing by a number, you're going to use the reciprocal. So when I divide by 2, that's the same thing as multiplying by what? 1/2. When I take half of something, when I divide something by 2, it's the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. So notice that I'm using the reciprocal. So in this case, slope, which I'm going to use m, my slope is equal to what? What number did I multiply by? 1/2. That's my slope. It's simply the number that you multiply x by to get y. It's the change. It represents the change in the relationship in the table. That's the method we've been using. The formula that we'll be using for writing equations of a line is this. Y equals, before I was giving you a little box, right? Yesterday with our warm-up, we had a box in front of x. Today, we're going to say that's m. So whatever you get for m is what you put in front of x. So that's our formula. Our formula is y equals mx. That is slope-intercept form you will be using for many years to come. I get to be the lucky one that introduces you to it. But you will be using slope-intercept form y equals mx for many years to come in your high school career. So if I want to replace m, I'm going to take, instead of m, I'm going to use my slope because it says slope is 1/2. So my equation for this line is y equals 1/2 x. So we calculate the slope, we plug in the slope for m, and then rewrite our equation. Any questions? All right. I'm going to show you the other way you can do it. If you look at our second table to the right, you'll notice that that relationship isn't as easy to see. So there's another way that you can calculate slope as a rate of change, and that is going to be the change in y, in our y value, over the change in our x values. Okay, so if you look at the change in y over the change in x, we can use that formula, and that will also give us slope if we're not able to find it by looking at the table easily. So the way we do that is we take two different y values. See the change in y? So I'm going to take two different y values. So I'm going to take these two, and I'm going to subtract them. I'm going to find out how much they changed. So it's going to be the second y value minus the first y value over the two change in x values. So the second x value minus the second or the first x value. This will all make sense in a minute. I'm simply subtracting the numbers. You guys need to write everything down as I have it, so that when you go to do problems on yourself, you'll understand how to do them. So now I'm just going to plug in the numbers. My two y values are right here. So I'm going to plug in 4 minus 2, so I don't get a negative. I'm going to start with my larger number and subtract my smallest. We're only going to be dealing with positive numbers in this unit, or at least for our slope. And then on the bottom, I'm going to subtract the two x values. So the two x values I chose are 6 and 3. So I'm going to subtract 6 minus 3. Okay? So 4 minus 2 is what? What's 4 minus 2, everybody? Everybody, what's 4 minus 2? And what's 6 minus 3? 3. So our slope is equal to 2/3. That's another way you can get it. Subtract 2 of the y values, put that as your numerator, subtract 2 of your x values, that's your denominator, and that will give you your slope. So now we can plug it in our formula, just like we did the other one. So our formula is y equals mx, so it's going to be y equals 2/3 x. 2/3 because that's what we got for slope, and that's what we're plugging in for m. Most of the problems that we're doing, you're going to be able to do the strategy on the left. But the strategy on the right allows you to figure it out when you don't know mentally what number you would multiply x by to get y. You may not have known immediately that that was 2/3. The strategy on the right will also work for when you have a multiplier and something that you're adding. And you'll do that a lot in 8th grade. So let's look at the two other examples. We're going to practice both strategies again. So the two different examples on the bottom. I've got x, -3 to -12, -4. Now I did put positive numbers so in your foldable. So if you guys could just put a little dash in front, the negative sign in front of the 3, 4, and 5. You could do it with a positive to a negative, but again, we're not dealing with negative slopes. We're only going to deal with positive slopes. And we know if we multiply a negative by a positive, we get a negative. So to get the relationship here, I'm going to look at the relationship between -3 and -12. What do I multiply -3 by to get -12? 4. We multiply it by 4. So it's going to be a times 4 relationship. Okay? So if it's a times 4 relationship, that's the number we're multiplying. What letter do we use for slope? M. So we're going to say m is equal to 4. That's simply our slope. We're going to substitute it into our equation. Y equals mx. Instead of using m, what number are we going to use? We're going to use the 4. So it's going to be y equals, what goes in front of x? 4. So now we have our slope and we have our equation from the table. We've already been doing this. We're just focusing solely on the tables for today. We've already been finding slope. We've been calling it the function rule, the rule. What are you multiplying by? So now let's look at the second example. We're going to try the other strategy. So I'm going to try subtracting 2 of the y values. I'm just going to pick those two. And my formula says I can do 3 minus 2, change in y. And then on the bottom, I'm going to look at the change in x. So I'm going to just do 12 minus 8. You have to pick, if the order you subtract just needs to be the same for x as you do y. If you did 2 minus 3 and 8 minus 12, you'd get a negative over a negative, which is a positive. So what you're going to do is then you're going to subtract 3 minus 2, your y values. And so on the top, you would have a 1. And then on the bottom, you have 12 minus 8, which is 4. So your slope, represented by m, is 1/4. And now we're going to take this. Oh, one more thing. If you divide by 4, remember when we divide by 4, that's the same thing as multiplying by 1/4. So that's our other method that we can use. So in our equation, we're going to substitute 1/4 for m. So our equation is going to be y equals 1/4 x. All right, that's it for our lesson on determining slope and function rule from an equation.